Sometimes the smallest act of kindness creates the biggest miracle. One rainy night, a quiet restaurant, and a young girl with only $5. No one noticed her when she walked in, but what she left behind changed one man's life forever. It was a cold evening in a small American town. Rain was falling slowly, tapping against the large glass windows of a cozy little restaurant called Golden Maple Diner. Inside, the warm yellow lights made the place feel safe and peaceful. The smell of fresh burgers, soup, and coffee filled the air. People were laughing, talking, and enjoying their meals. Behind the counter stood Daniel, a 45-year-old waiter who had worked at the diner for almost 15 years. Daniel was known for his calm voice and kind smile. But tonight, something about him felt tired. Life had not been easy lately. His wife had passed away 2 years ago after a long illness. Since then, Daniel had been raising his young son alone while working long hours at the diner. Some nights, when the restaurant got quiet, he would stare out the window and think about how different life used to be. But he never showed his sadness to customers. Because to them, Daniel was always the same warm and friendly waiter. "Table 3 needs another coffee," the manager called. Daniel nodded and walked across the diner. The rain outside grew heavier. Then suddenly, the front door opened with a soft ding. A young girl stepped inside. She looked about 11 or 12 years old. Her brown hair was slightly wet from the rain, and she wore an oversized jacket that clearly belonged to someone older. She stood near the door for a moment, looking around nervously. Most people didn't notice her, but Daniel did. He walked over gently. "Hey there," he said with a friendly smile. "Would you like a table?" The girl nodded quietly. Daniel led her to a small table near the window. She sat down slowly, holding something tightly in her hand. Daniel handed her the menu. "Take your time," he said kindly. The girl looked at the menu for a long moment. Her eyes moved slowly across the prices. Burger, $10. Chicken plate, $12. Pasta, $11. Her expression changed. She looked down at her hand and slowly opened it. Inside were a few coins and a small $5 bill. She began counting the coins carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4, $5 and some change. She looked back at the menu again. Daniel watched from across the room. He had seen this look before. The look of someone who was hungry, but trying not to show it. After a few minutes, Daniel returned. "Have you decided?" he asked gently. The girl hesitated, asked quietly, "Excuse me, how much is the soup?" Daniel glanced at the menu. "The soup of the day is $5. The girl's shoulders relaxed a little. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll have the soup." Daniel nodded, but as he walked toward the kitchen, something inside his heart felt heavy. He knew that look. It was the same look his son sometimes had when they were short on money. The look of someone pretending they were okay. Daniel stood in the kitchen doorway for a moment, thinking. Then he made a quiet decision. When he returned to the table, he was carrying more than just soup. He placed a warm bowl of soup, a fresh burger, fries, and a glass of milk in front of the girl. Her eyes widened in surprise. I didn't order all this," she said quickly. Daniel smiled softly. "Tonight the diner had a special," he said, "and you happen to be the lucky customer." The girl looked confused. "But I only have $5. Daniel shook his head gently. "That's okay," he said. "For tonight, just enjoy your meal." For a moment, the girl said nothing. Then slowly, her eyes began to fill with tears. Not loud crying, just quiet tears sliding down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. She began eating slowly. Every bite seemed careful, like she didn't want the meal to end. Daniel returned to work, serving other tables. But from time to time he glanced at the girl. Something about her reminded him of his son. Small, quiet, trying to be strong in a big world. Nearly 20 minutes later, the girl finished her meal. She stood up quietly. Daniel was busy with another table, and didn't notice when she walked toward the door. The bell rang softly as she left. A few minutes later, Daniel returned to clean the table. And that's when he noticed something strange. On the table were $5. All the coins were placed neatly beside the bill. Daniel frowned slightly. Why would she leave the money? Then he noticed a small folded piece of paper. He opened it. The handwriting was messy, like a child's writing, but the message was clear. It said, "Dear Sir, I wanted the burger very much, but I ordered the soup so I could leave a tip for you, because you were kind to me." Daniel stopped breathing for a moment. His hands trembled slightly as he read the note again. Outside the window, the rain continued falling, and somewhere out there in the dark streets, the small girl was walking home. Daniel looked down at the $5 on the table, and suddenly his eyes filled with tears, because in 15 years of working at that diner, no tip had ever meant more than this one.